Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Dram Show with me, Chris Goodrum. Right, well, as you can see from the title picture, we're looking at rum once again. Now, I know a lot of you like your rums, like I do. So, firstly, I'd like to say a very, very big thank you to Robert, or Skippy, as he's better known from Specialty Brands, for the samples for this afternoon's tasting. Now, as the Trois Rivieres distillery does quite a number of different bottlings, I've had to break this down into two parts. So we'll be looking at, as you can see, 5 this week, and next week we'll be looking at the vintage bottlings. So that should be really interesting. But what we're going to be doing today is obviously looking at the Trois Rivieres rum from the white all the way up to the 8-year-old, and see how the aging process adds colour, character, and complexity to the rum. So I think it should be really, really interesting. So as you probably know, you can broadly kind of break rums down into two categories. You've got obviously those that are distilled from molasses, which is the black gloop, for want of a better word, that's kind of left over from refining sugar. Obviously still very, very high in sugar content, ideal for sort of turning into a sort of a beer and then distilling. I guess somebody had a brainwave at some stage about using up the kind of leftovers. But the Trois Rivieres distillery that we're looking at this afternoon, it falls into the second category of rums, which are called agricols. Now, agricols, I mean, to me, are a slightly more natural rum in that it's made from the juice of the sugar cane. So basically you take the sugar cane, you crush it up, and you extract the juice, and then you distill, or you make the you ferment your beer, for want of a better word, and then you make the distillation. So in essence, it's got more of a kind of affinity, I guess, with whiskey. And so in essence, you take your barley, you mill it, you turn it grist, etc., etc., etc. And so you can see there's a sort of a distinct similarity in the character. Often the agricols tend to be lighter. I mean, certainly Trois Rivieres only distill in column still, so again that will emphasise the lightness of the spirit, give it that slightly high tone kind of character, and not quite so sort of broad and rich as, say, the molasses based rum, like, say, Diplomatico, for example, which we looked at a few episodes back. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I love them. They have a particular characteristic, and we will obviously discover that as we taste them, that they have this kind of medicinal, herbal kind of character, which you can almost kind of like, they're almost like the Isla whiskies, I guess, of rum. They're that kind of style. If you like that, then you're obviously going to enjoy these types of rums. If you're not really into those kind of weird and wonderful flavours, then obviously they're not going to be quite so much your cup of tea, so to speak. And obviously the sweeter, darker rums like Eldorado and others of that kind of ilk are very popular, because by and large, as a nation, we kind of have quite a sweet tooth. So the agricols are not quite as sweet. I mean, they obviously have some sweetness because they're distilled from sugar at the end of the day, but they certainly don't have the sort of dark richness, and you can kind of almost say, so yeah, they've got this affinity, this sort of whiskey-like kind of character, a lightness, and hopefully, you know, this will come out in the tasting. So anyway, that's about enough waffle, I think. Of you know what rums are all about. So I'll just introduce this afternoon's sort of lineup then. Right, okay, so this afternoon we'll be kicking off with the white. Now, hopefully that will kind of give us a benchmark. That'll give us an idea of the character of the spirit that comes off the column stills at Trois Rivieres. It's bottled at 50%. As far as I can tell, and having tasted it before, I don't think this is oak aged, unlike some of the other white rums like Diplomatico, for example, which spends I think about 3 years in oak. and then they strip out the colour, and it sort of gives it a kind of softness, a little bit of vanilla. As far as I can tell, this has not been aged. It's essentially, distilled, rested, bottled. So theoretically, more natural. The second bottling we'll be looking at is called the Ambre, bottled at 40%. It is aged for 18 months in large French vats, so should have a fairly gentle oak character, and we will obviously see if that is indeed true. The third bottling we'll be looking at is called the Cuvee du Moulin, or Moulin, or however you should pronounce it. Again, bottled of 40%. This particular bottling is aged for a minimum of 3 years in ex-cognac casks, so it'll be interesting to see how the character, the dried fruit character of the rum kind of mixes with the cognac kind of rancio, so that should be quite interesting. The next bottling we'll be looking at is the 5-year-old, again bottled at 40% and obviously aged for about 5 years old. And finally we'll be looking at the 8-year-old, again bottled at 40%. So I think you'll agree, a really interesting lineup, taking us through the various age statements, and hopefully we'll see what the each individual bottling gives us. So without further ado, we'll start with the white. Right, okay, so the white. Let's see what the nose gives us then, shall we? Oh. Now that's a bit of a senses wake up, it has to be said. That's oily, intense. It's got that off the still kind of character, that sort of high tone notes. A little bit of dried fruit, a little bit of coconut, a little bit of sort of satsumary sort of, no not satsumary, sultanery, sorry, kind of notes. Quite herbal. Lightly, very lightly sort of medicinal. It's not very medicinal at all in actual fact. It's just got that little hint that this is an agricol rum, but it has that sort of natural, oily, pungent kind of character. And certainly it doesn't come across that, I don't get any vanilla kind of notes which I would expect to get in a white rum that's been aged for a period of time and then had the colour stripped out. So completely natural, real pungency. Lovely stuff, this. Palate. Wow, it's got a spicy kick, that has. Again, really natural, lovely kind of earthy sugarcane kind of finish, almost like sort of, I guess, licking the raw sugarcane itself. Again, quite pungent, oily, a little bit of that sort of off the still kind of character, slightly medicinal, really natural, little bit on the raw side, you could argue. Certainly, I think if you cut that with a little bit of water, it would just kind of take the edge off the alcohol. And unfortunately, no, I haven't got any water, so I can't do it. But believe you me, it's got some intensity. It's really nice. A little bit of dried fruit sort of on the aftertaste, but this is quite pungent spirit. So nice, good start. Right, okay, so next up, the Ambre. Let's see what the nose gives us on that. Quite sweet, plenty of sugarcane, a little bit of cinnamon. It's a bit muted, I think is the word. There's a nice developing herbal rancio coming through. The sort of almost like kind of like you can feel that the spirit is starting to develop that distinctive agricol kind of character. Really quite peppery now, but it's kind of, for something that's been aged in large vats, it does show quite a lot of oak character, and not in the sort of like the vanillins kind of oak character, more in the kind of hemming in. It's kind of dampening, a little bit of soot. It's pleasant. It's simple. It's not. I'm not warming to it. It has to be said. It's all very. Palate. Really peppery finish again. Nice kind of pulped kind of feeling to it. But again, it's very burnt, caramelly sort of kind of character. A little bit of burnt biscuit as well, a little bit of, which incidentally I did find in that, which I didn't mention, but it does have that sort of slightly burnt biscuit kind of character. Simple, straightforward. Like I said, the oak is doing it no real favours, I think. And although I'm surprised at how much kind of deadening oak there is to it, considering it's aged in large vats rather than casks, it's quite surprising. But the quality of the spirit is really, really good. So yeah, okay, not sort of like a world beater, but not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Right, okay, so on to the Cuvee du Moulin. Let's see what the nose gives us on this thing. Oh, now that is more like it. This is where the Trois Rivieres range starts to become interesting. It's got some tight French grainy oak, a little bit of vanilla. It's more about the oak than it is the spirit at this moment in time. Although the spirit has a little bit of dried fruits, a little bit of camphor. I like the combination of the two kind of characters. You've definitely got that sort of cognac-y kind of dried fruit note, and then underneath you've got the rummy dried fruit, and they kind of work really nicely together, I think. I love the spiciness. It's got that grip, that if you can remember when we looked at the Compass Box range, and certainly Spice Tree, it has that similar grippy, grainy, edgy sort of tannin that you get with French oak. Quite broad, aromatic. It's got a little bit of perfume, violet, a little bit of sugar cane. The more I smell that, the more I like that. That is an impressive nose. It's really well balanced. Yeah, lovely peppery finish. Now we're getting more character. Now we're getting more rum character, more rummy dried fruits. They're coming up first. Then you start to get the sort of the cognac rancio, the sort of grainy French oak. Does dry a little bit at the very finish, but then you get the spices, the light medicinal note, the light agricol rancio coming through right at the very end. Again, it's not mega complex, and I think that taking the spirit, and if it was aged in, say, American oak, it would be a bit simple. You'd get some sweet vanillins. It wouldn't have quite the interest, and I think putting it in the cognac casks, certainly using the French oak, has given it that sort of edginess, and the cask has imparted some obvious character, which works really, really nicely with the rum. So I think for a relatively young rum, I think that's pretty impressive stuff. Okay, so on to the 5-year-old. So quite a, well, not a huge jump in age, obviously a couple of years. So let's see what that's done to the spirit. Like I said, this is aged in American oak. You can see quite a bit darker in colour. So let's see what the nose gives us. Oh yes, now that's an agricol. Pungent and medicinal, herbal, bit of camphor, lots and lots of dried fruit. Actually quite dark, quite dense, almost molassy in character, it has to be said. Very thick, a little bit of violets, some wood spice, a little bit of vanilla, but again it's not overly oaked. By the time we've got to 5 years old, the spirit has developed this lovely character and it is really forward. The oak is kind of like sitting in the background, it's kind of giving it some structure, some depth. Dried grapey fruits, a little bit of prune. Like I said, almost a molasse kind of character, but not quite. It's still got that sort of slight high-toned column still character, that freshness. That is just simply stunning, absolutely stunning. Like I said, just really well balanced. Out. Oh wow, that's a finish. Long, elegant, juicy prunes, raisins, sultana, a little bit of coconut, possibly. But again, got that lovely sort of camphory, slightly medicinal, slightly iodine-y, quite salty finish in actual fact. But then I think it is situated quite near the coast, I believe, the distillery. So that is again sort of like another kind of like almost kind of islery kind of feeling. It doesn't kind of have a peated note, obviously. There's a little bit of wood smoke, lots of chewy oak, caramel, toffee more than caramel, I'd say. Dark toffee, light chocolatiness as well. I mean, it is really, really complex. I mean, you taste that and you're just getting all these different kind of characters, and it has just a lovely progression to it. So. Not cheap. Can't remember off the top of my head how much the 5-year-old is retailing for, but I know that the Trois Rivieres range isn't particularly cheap, I think, but they're definitely worth it. They are, you know, really impressive, and the 5-year-old is just absolutely gorgeous. Right, and finally let's look at the 8-year-old. So let's see what an additional 3 years does to the spirit then, shall we? Oh, darker. More leather, yeah, slightly leathery, tobacco, spicy, real grippy, pungent spices. Again, has that elegance, that sort of slight high tones, column still character still there. Lots of dusty oak, dried fruits. again, quite a subtle herbal rancio to the nose, but oh, really deep, wonderfully deep. Like I was saying, really dusty, quite spicy, lots of that sort of leather tobacco, but edgy as well. You know, it's just like, oh, impressive, really, very, very good. Slight violet note again. I mean, it's certainly a progression from the 5-year-old, and it is absolutely stunning. I can tell you that. But wow, what a finish! Bitter chocolate, dried fruits, prunes, spice, leather, tobacco, cigar leaf, tannins. Whoa, wow, wow, good. That is really impressive, really earthy kind of aftertaste, and that's what this just gets me about the whole Trois Rivieres range. It just has a really natural, earthy kind of character. It's not been messed around with. They don't sweeten it after distilling. Not that I'm saying that using sweetening after, you know, to artificially sweeten your rum is a bad thing. It's a stylistic thing, but just natural. Just has a lovely natural kind of character to it, and finish is just superb. And again, like I was saying, I know that the 8-year-old isn't particularly cheap, and you know, you could probably get other 8-12-year-olds for about the same sort of price, but you know, the quality is just very, very good. Right, okay, so let's sum this little tasting up then. Trois Rivieres, that's a bit good, it has to be said. Alright, with possibly the exception of the Ambre, which I don't think is particularly there. I suppose you can chuck it in cocktails, use a mixer or whatever, you know. But it's just, the oak, although it just seems to have clamped down on it. So, yeah, I'm probably just getting ahead of myself here. I love the white. I think the white is great. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea because it has that very natural, that off the stilly kind of character. There's no softening of it, rounding off the edges with oak aging or anything like that. It's pungent. It's natural. It's, you know, it's great stuff. Love it. Brilliant. The Cuvee du Moulin I really, really like. Okay, you can argue that there's not a huge amount of character from the rum at this particular age or point in its aging, but by using, like I said, cognac casks, it's adding another element to it. The flavours work really nicely together, and I think it's all round a really quite pleasant rum. Obviously, the 5 and the 8-year-old is when the spirit really starts to come into its element. I mean, the 5-year-old has a lovely complexity. Plenty of character, plenty of agricol kind of character, but relatively subtle. I mean, I have tasted other agricols that, you know, you just sort of smell and you just go, whoa, my God, petrol and all sorts of wonderful stuff like that. Quite subtle, but, you know, still quite strongly flavoured. 8-year-old, obviously, I think is probably my pick of the bunch. It's just really complex. There's so much going on in it. And like I said, I mean, although in the general scheme of things, 8 years old might not seem like an awful long time, you have to remember that in the Caribbean, in the French islands, and down that part of the world, it's a lot hotter. The spirit matures a lot quicker, so an 8-year-old rum is probably the equivalent of what, 16-year-old whiskey with regards to levels of complexity, generally speaking. I'm still tasting it now. It's just earthy, natural, and I think that is probably more than anything what comes across in this tasting, that the Trois Rivieres range just has a real lovely natural character to it. It's basically, you know, raw material, pulped, crushed up, fermented, distilled, stuck in a barrel, bottled. Nothing else, no other mucking about, no fancy finishes, no sweetening, no nothing. It's just literally, you know, just bottled, and it just has that wonderful kind of character. So, so yeah, there you have it. That's part of the range. I mean, like I said, next week we will be obviously looking at the vintage bottlings. So that will be really quite interesting. Before I do go though, quick bit of news. We'll be having another whisky tasting evening at the shop on the 29th of October. Tickets are obviously limited to 10 or 12, I forget which number we picked now, because obviously the space implications. Tickets are priced at 30 quid each. We'll be tasting a range of 6 whiskies. We'll be doing 2 Scottish whiskies, 2 Irish whiskies, and 2 American whiskies. So, you know, nice little range, I think. So if you're interested, or you live in Nottingham, and I think we'll kick off at around about sort of 7 o'clock and wrap up about sort of like, you know, 3 hours or so after that. If you're interested in going, either give the shop a call, ping me an email, or an email to the shop email, which is ron@gauntlywine.com, or go via the website. I think I believe the tickets are up on the website for you to purchase. And the last one that we did was quite a success. Everybody enjoyed it, so hopefully this one should be equally as successful. So, like I said, if you're in Nottingham, or you live in Nottingham, or you're visiting, and you fancy an evening of tasting some interesting whiskey with me and my colleague Ian, then come along and buy yourself a ticket. So, but anyway, that's enough waffling for this afternoon. I've still got some rather nice 8-year-old. Good dramming.